This is A Geek Leader. Hey guys, John Rowdup back again with episode 32 of A Geek Leader, and today I want to talk about employee engagement. Not too long ago, I gave a talk at a conference about engaging millennials, and part of that, the reason why I gave that talk is I usually give a lot of leadership talks and motivation talks and how to motivate employees and technical leaders, and sometimes people ask me, it's actually pretty common, I'll have someone in my age or older in the audience that'll say, well, how do you engage millennials? How is it you get these young people to listen to you and not feel so entitled? And a lot of times I don't know how to answer that, or I didn't know how to answer that. So I put a lot of time in researching how do you answer that question. And I want to start out first just talking about the idea of millennials on there, because a lot of people give millennials a bad rap, and I think that's incorrect. I think we give millennials a bad rap because they grew up in a different time period than my age and older. Just like my dad's age gave my generation a bad rap, saying that we were lazy and we didn't, I had to walk to school uphill both ways and things like that. Stories I would get from my grandpa and my dad. And they're saying, you don't know how good you have it. And it's the same thing that my generation is saying to millennials today. It's not really any different. So I think they're getting a bad rap. So I want to go ahead and put that to bed. Now, with that being said, there is, a lot of things changing right now in the world, especially with technology. You guys are listening to A Geek Leader, so hopefully you know a lot about technology, and you are a little bit of a geek right now too. But if you think about when I was a kid and I wanted to ask a girl on a date, I had to pick up the phone and call her. And it was a landline phone, so I had to hope nobody on my end picked up the phone while I was talking to her. But then when I called, her mom would answer the phone, or her dad, and I would have to convince them to let me talk to her. And then I'd have to convince her to go on a date with me. So I had all these additional opportunities to learn how verbal communication works. Also, whenever I wanted a present or a gift, my mom would bring me a catalog, like a Sears catalog or something, and you would flip through it and you would circle the things that you wanted and write down the page numbers, and then my mom would go get it and fill out the order form and mail a check. And 6 to 8 weeks later, your present arrived, and you had no idea. You forgot what you ordered back then. Whereas today, I can just grab my Amazon phone or my iPhone, go to Amazon, click a button, and I can get same-day delivery on most things that I order these days. And it's just this generation that things come quickly because technology is quick. Whereas when I was growing up, things came slow because technology was slow. And it's just a different perspective. So saying that someone's entitled because they like things to come fast because that's the way that they were raised and that's the way things worked back then, versus someone who likes things to be a little bit slower and enjoy the journey and the wait, it's just a different perspective. So I don't want that to get too bogged down when I talk about engagement and separating millennials versus Gen X or any other generations that are out there. But that is one problem that I've seen whenever we get into the workforce, is there's this idea that, well, things come quickly now because of technology, so should promotions, they should come quickly. And I saw on Twitter just yesterday, someone posted something about, senior developers being, less than 10 years of experience, and they should have ancient developers for those that have over 20 years. So I guess I'm an ancient developer if I fell in that category. But it's just one of those things where some people believe that we're moving ahead too quickly, and other folks that one of the challenges I see with engagement, and I've seen this with my students. I teach part-time at Winthrop University, and I've had students that graduated, went on to get a good job doing front-end development. And I went to lunch with a student a while back after he'd been at the company for 9 months, and he was frustrated and ready to quit. And I was like, well, why? And he goes, well, I'm just not making an impact. I'm like, well, you just started. You haven't been there very long. You haven't been there long enough to make an impact. At one of my first full-time jobs, it was 2 years before I felt like I was making an impact. And even now, I've been at my current role for 18 months, and I'm still not feeling like I'm making a big enough impact. But that's because things take time. You need to enjoy the journey and learn from the journey. And part of that's, one of the issues I see with engaging millennials is that they haven't been taught that there is a process and a journey that you have to go through. In school, everything is really quick. Learn this semester, and at the end of the semester, you know something, you take a test, and you're done, and you move on. You don't realize that it's a compounding effect of education and experiences that matter in moving forward. So now that the millennial thing's behind us for a little bit, let's talk about engagement stats. And from themuse.com, I found these engagement stats that are on the website at geekleader.com. You can check it out on the show notes. But it said that 70% of employees are not engaged at work. And 89% of companies think employees leave for more money, but actually only 12% do. And I can attest to that. I think most of you guys have probably heard my TED Talk by now, but in that I talked about how employees were just leaving all the time. When I first became a manager, and I had constant turnover, and I believed back then that the reason why they were leaving is because they wanted more money, and they could go to the banking industry where I'm at near Charlotte and make a lot more money working for banks than they could at the company that I was with. And that was just the lie that I told myself, instead of really thinking about that is the leader, that is the boss. All right, next stat, 43% of highly engaged employees receive feedback at least once per week, but only 13% of disengaged employees receive weekly feedback. And then 75% of people voluntarily leave their job because of their bosses. That's a huge one. That was big for me because that's why my team was leaving back then, because I didn't know about leadership. I didn't quite understand the difference between management and leadership, and I didn't know how to engage my employees and to communicate with them and to inspire them. So I was losing people all the time. And according to this, 3 out of 4 people that quit, they quit because of that, because of their boss, not because of the company, not because of the job, not because of the hours, not because of the technologies that they're using, but because of their boss. So why do people quit their job? Well, number 1, they hate their boss. Number 2 is because they feel like their work doesn't matter. So many people will just say, I feel like my work doesn't matter. Like if I disappeared, the company wouldn't miss a beat. And maybe that's true for a period of time, but there will be an impact, when someone leaves. So what I want to do is talk about how, as a leader, we can skew those things. We can change those stats. We can help improve our areas in our company. Number 1, we can add purpose. And I'm not talking about the big P purpose, like save the rainforest, feed the hungry. Although all those things are important, I'm thinking about the little P purpose, just finding purpose in what we do every day. Some people don't know why they do the jobs that they do. They don't know what this component of software that they're writing is for. They don't know the purpose of maintaining this application that they're maintaining. And it's very important to instill your team with that example of why they do the things that they do. I'll talk a little bit more about purpose near the end of this talk, but it's extremely difficult to find the big P purpose at a lot of jobs, because there's not a big P purpose, but it's not that hard to find the little P purpose, of what people are doing on a daily basis, and just communicate that and explain that in a way that resonates with people. All right, a couple more stats. Ignoring boss. If a boss ignores their employee, they're 40% more likely to actively disengage from work. So actively disengage, I didn't know what that meant, so I had to do some Googling to try to figure that out. And actively disengage, it's not just I'm not engaged in my job, I'm not enjoying the things that I'm doing. It is I'm actively looking for a different job. I'm actively looking for something else to do other than my job. I'm actively looking to go talk to someone, to gossip, to go to Facebook, to go to eBay, etc., etc. I'm trying to not do my job right now. That is actively disengaging. Most of these activities aren't only bad for the employee, but they're also bad for morale of people around that see that employee. How many people here, that are listening to this today on this podcast have said, hey, I have had an employee that did not pull their weight and it did not make me happy, and it made me less happy about going to work. I hear it all the time. I hear so many people, when I go to a conference or I'm talking to someone at a networking event, and people will just say, yeah, but these people, they don't pull their weight. It's so frustrating to have to go to work, and I work really hard, but they don't. So when you have people that are disengaged at work, actively disengaged, it not just hurts them, but it hurts those around them. So as a leader, we need to make sure we stop that the best we can. All right, next stat, critical boss. A critical boss, someone who criticizes everything that their employees do, that never sees the positive, the achievements. They always see, oh, we could have done this better and that better. Their employees are 22% more likely to actively disengage. Now, with that being said, that it's actually better to be a critical boss and criticize, according to these stats, than to ignore your employees altogether. Because when you're criticizing, at least you're paying attention. Now, that's not the best. The best is a praising boss. A praising boss is a boss that praises 1 out of 10 times. So, that's less than 10% or about 10% of times that you praise that they're positive activities. So they do 10 things right and you just thank them for 1. That's it. If you do that, then an employee is less than 1% of employees that get that kind of feedback actively disengage at work. Less than 1%. So if you want to hedge your bets, be a praising boss. Find positive things that your team does and thank them. Acknowledge them. Let them know that they did a good job when they do a good job. Not every time, because if you do it every time, it doesn't mean anything. It's like that old saying that if you tell a girl you love her every minute of every day, then it doesn't mean as much than if you just tell her when it's important and tell her occasionally, tell her regularly, but not every single minute of every single day. It's like the boy that cried wolf. He cried wolf all the time, so it didn't mean anything. Same thing is with praising. You need to praise when they actually do something that's good. When they actually achieve something, not their everyday daily routines, but when a new project goes live or someone gets something under budget or on time when they're usually late or something like that, when they make a difference, praise them. So with that being said, a lot of the problems that we have today comes because of management. Management's old school. Management was actually a term created in the 1850s for compliance and how to gain compliance during this industrial revolution that we're having. And what do we need to do to get people in line? It wasn't how do we engage people, how do we get creative thinkers, how do we inspire people? It was how do we get them in line, how do we get them to do the things we want them to do? And that's where management comes in. So what we need to focus on is leadership, not management. We need to motivate, not manage. And I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, then go back and look at the Biology of Leadership podcast. I think that will really make some more sense when you look at that. When it comes to motivating people, there's a really good book by Dan Pink called Drive, and that's probably one of my favorite books on motivation. And in that book, he talks about the if-then doesn't work for complex tasks. It works great for simple tasks, but it does not work for complex and creative tasks. And working in technology, all of our tasks are complex and creative. They really are. You may say, well, I'm not creative. I'm just a systems engineer. No, you're very creative. You come up with solutions to solve problems. You're working with Active Directory. You're setting ACL rules. You are figuring out ways to do DevOps and to script releases. There's creativity in that. Just like when you're writing software, you're being very creative. You're coming up with ways to solve problems. You're creating a solution. And if-then does not work for that. So 4 reasons why if-then doesn't work is engagement is intrinsic, whereas if-then is extrinsic. If you do this, then you get that. That's all extrinsic reward, whereas engagement is intrinsic. It's coming from the inside. If-then, it puts individuals against one another in a competition instead of working as a team. Working as a team is much better for engaging employees than the cutthroat version of competition. It causes some folks to rationalize their ethics, leading to cheating and cutting corners. I think we've all heard and seen about this where people were asked to, you get a bonus if you sell so many things. And I was at a company once where they implemented bonuses for customer service representatives if they could upsell people when they called in for customer service complaints. Now, that's not sales, that's customer service. Let me make sure that's clear. When you call customer service, why are you calling customer service? It's because you're not happy. You are complaining about something, or you need something fixed, or you need something changed. You're not calling there to buy. But this company wanted to incentivize people to upsell when they called customer service. What did that do? Well, it did cause sales to go up for a brief period of time, and it caused upsells to go up for a longer period of time. But it also caused customer satisfaction ratings to drop, to plummet. And it also caused customer service reps putting in orders and then canceling them later just to get the commission. Overall, it cost the company more money with lower customer satisfaction than if they just were customer service reps prior to putting the incentive to increase or to give bonuses and incentive for upselling during customer service calls. All right, with that being said, money is a motivator. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. So what we need to do is just pay people enough to take money off the table. Make sure it's a fair salary with those that are around them. Make sure it's a fair salary that's competitive in the industry. Pay the people enough to take money off the table. And again, in Drive, that book by Daniel Pink, he talks specifically about 3 things that do motivate people after money's off the table. And that's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And autonomy is freedom in your job. It's freedom to do things the way that you want to do them. One of the ways I grant autonomy at my job is I allow people to work on the problems how they want to work on the problems. Now, we have frameworks and methodologies that they have to stay within, but what they do within those frameworks is totally up to them. I don't micromanage and tell them, exactly how things get done. We set goals. We talk about what needs to be done, but how it needs to be done is up to that individual. Another way you can give autonomy is permitting people to set their own schedules. Go to lunch when you want to go to lunch. If you want to work through lunch and leave early, that's fine, as long as your time gets put in. Another one is mastery. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose. The second one is mastery, and that's getting better at something that matters. Personal growth, business growth, learning something that's important to you, learning something new, a new skill, getting a certification. All those things can fall under mastery. I think going to conferences and learning from others around you is a great way to become better at certain things. You get better at networking, you get better at leadership, you get better at your skill, at learning things that other groups are doing, and other teams are doing, and other businesses are doing that you can take back to your team to help out. Another thing you do is empower your employees to do more, to stretch themselves, to do more than they think they can do. And lastly is purpose. And it's working on something that matters. You can get big P purpose, and I tried to implement that in my team before. You can see that when you go to my TED Talk on geekleader.com or at johnrouter.com and check that out. And just take a watch. I'll talk about how I gave purpose to my team a few years ago. But basically, how can you show people what they do is important, what the benefits are from the things that they're doing? And that's how you inspire people with purpose. And if you do that, if you motivate people with autonomy, mastery, and purpose, explain the purpose part, what they're doing, why it's important, and then celebrate them, praise them 1 out of 10 times that they do something good. I try to do 1 out of 5. I fall short on that quite frequently because I get in this mindset to where if I praise people, because they're doing something good, then I expect them to do something good the next time, and I don't realize that it's something good again. It raises the bar, and that's true, and I need to work on that a little bit more, be more complimentary. But if I praise you for something mediocre, then you should be worried, because that means you're not doing a good job all the time, because I am praising you for mediocrity. So I'm trying to work on that one some too. But you need to praise people when they do something good, when they achieve something, when they raise the bar a little bit for themselves. Recognize that as a boss and as a leader, and praise them for that. All right. So again, if you implore those things, autonomy, mastery, purpose, and giving gratitude and praise to those that achieve something for your team, you will help this academic engagement epidemic that's going on, and you will help people become more engaged in their job, and you'll be the leader that your team needs. And you should see great benefit with that. Less turnover, better productivity from the team, more excited, more engaged at work, and things just get better when that happens. Now, I hope this has been helpful for you guys. If so, even if not, you can go to iTunes and leave me a review. I'd greatly appreciate it. And check out the show notes at geekleader.com. I'm also going to be sending out a survey to anybody that's on my mailing list. If you haven't signed up for that, you can get that at geekleader.com. Just sign up for the mailing list. And it's going to be a survey about technical leadership and topics that you may be interested in, things you want to learn about. Hopefully that will be helpful for me to generate more content that's specific to the needs of you guys. So if you have a moment, sign up for that mailing list, and I'll send out that survey to you, and we should be able to get some good response. With that being said, please leave me a review in iTunes. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.